What's up guys, hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to give you 3 reasons I became plant-based. I know it's been a while since the last time I made a video with this format, but I believe I can provide some information of value to you and why you should consider moving on to more plant-based nutrition. Now, I want to clarify 2 things before we start the video. First of all, I'm not a vegan, I'm not a vegetarian, I don't care about the ethics, I don't care about the environmental reasons either. It's more for selfish reasons, which I'm going to explain, which might be of interest to you. The second one is that I still consume animal products, it's just that I have reduced my intake by a considerable amount. So I went from eating like either meat or eggs or drinking milk every day to once or twice a week. So it has been like a lot of reduction in terms of the amount of animal products I consume. And when I consume them, it's not in the same quantities I used to do so. So in terms of both frequency and quantity, I have had a considerable reduction. So with that, I also want to say that eventually on the proper Protein Man channel, the one with less subscribers, I'm going to upload the more edited videos, citing studies and showing the why to everything. For now, you're just going to have to basically trust me, bro. So let's begin. The first reason is that plant foods are cheaper and easier to store. So basically, because plant foods, usually when they are sold, like for example grains, cereals or whatever, they come with low water activity and low water content as well. This means that they don't have a lot of available water for microorganisms in the food matrix to self-replicate. So this is a huge plus because that means that they are easier to store, and therefore like shipping costs and having it on the supermarket is going to be less cost intensive, and therefore they're going to be cheaper by default. Not only that, it also makes it easier to buy in bulk. I have a 25 kilogram bag of soy flour, a 25 kilogram tub of peanut butter, and I think it was like also a 25 kilogram bag of oatmeal, which I bought for pennies, and they're like a year worth of food, so it's a really good investment in that regard. Second thing is that all plant foods provide a huge variety of nutrition. Not only they provide, for example, carbs, like for example rice, right? They provide starch, but they also provide some minerals because most rice is enriched, and on top of that, they have a small amount of proteins, which you might say, well, it's rice proteins, plant proteins worthless. No, you're wrong. Plant protein performs well, and although it's a small amount, if you're someone that is active and eats a lot of calories, those grams of protein actually add up really fast. You can actually reach a very noticeable amount of your requirement, of your actual requirement, and not the misconception of like 20 million, 6 million grams of protein, right? Keeping that in mind, they all provide like a little bit of everything, right? Like you have lentils, they provide protein, but they also provide iron, for example, and they also provide fiber, and they also provide starch. Same goes with, for example, chickpeas, peanuts, and so on and so forth. Especially my grain of preference, and you can comment soy boy all you want in the comments below, is soy products, especially textured soy and tofu. Recently also I have been involved with like a lot of gluten products like seitan and so on, like making sort of like mock meats, not because of the taste or trying to imitate meat per se, but more so the texture and the consistency of meat, because that's a very appealing consistency for us humans, right? So like for example making like taco meat or fajita meat, like cutting it up into small pieces and frying it in a wok, that sort of thing. They usually don't provide a single thing, they provide a wide variety of nutrients. So if you are not an idiot, you can actually properly plan like your meals, and you're going to be able to get a lot of nutrition from very few meals and from very few calories. because you don't need that much protein, which is the main thing. And if you supplement B12 or use nutritional yeast, for example, that is often enriched with vitamin B12, or you just eat like a couple eggs every now and then, you're going to be just fine. So keeping that in mind, at the end of the day, plant foods are very high in nutrients, and we use methods, of course, to reduce the anti-nutrients to increase the bioavailability of said like compounds. By that, we end up with a very nutritious set of food ingredients to make our meals. So that's a huge plus for me. Compare that to, for example, animal products. Unless you eat like organ meats, which I did in the past, like liver is a really good source of nutrients. Outside of that, if you eat like very lean meats, you're not getting a lot of nutrition outside of B vitamins, which you can easily get by again, supplementation, which is dirt cheap, or by nutritional yeast, or just by eating a couple eggs. Simple as that. That's another thing. They're cheap. They're a mix of nutrients. And as long as you condiment your foods, so as long as you know how to prepare and plan your meals, honestly, the food is not bland, and it's actually quite appealing. I actually have made a couple of recipes that I like more than their, let's just say, meat eater counterpart, or like their, the ones that incorporate like animal products. Because if you're able to actually learn how to cook, not math, but actual recipes, you're going to be able to get really tasty meals, very nutritious, and also for very cheap. So it's a huge plus. Then, give me a sec, reason number 2, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this in the comments. Keep in mind that I have a degree on the matter and I do research on the matter, so shut up. But the reason number 2 is that objectively plant-based diets are healthier. So there's no arguing that. Straight up, there's no way. LDL, like serum LDL, and like your ApoB values have a linear correlation with cardiovascular disease. So just by that, you know that animal foods increment your LDL. And it's not a thing of because a thing that gets like very talked about currently is the LDL to HDL ratio. Well, LDL by itself, independent of HDL, is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. So you have to realize that these people that promote like the keto diet or the carnivore diet, they're a bunch of quacks, science deniers. They're like the flat earthers, kind of, the ones that are recommending you to drink raw milk and such. They're fucking idiots, and they don't know what they're talking about. And when you actually get them to talk about the topic with someone that is actually well-read or well-versed in the literature, they fall apart every single time. Like, they tell you, oh, seed oils are bad. Why? Explain to me. I know about the topic, so you can't bullshit your way out of this. Like, explain to me. And they can't. They simply can't. Every single thing they say is wrong, basically. So I'm going to eventually make a video about how the whole cholesterol denier thing is retarded, so be on the lookout for that. Second thing is that another myth is that plant proteins are bad, or that they're not as good as animal products, and they often use either the PDCAAs, the DIAS score to tell you, or the leucine content of plant proteins, and why, because of that reason, right, they're not that good. First of all, you don't understand the PDCAAs. Simple as that. The PDCAAs works as a minimum. So you can have a very complete protein, but it lacks one amino acid and it has a value of 0. So it doesn't make sense. I'm going to make like a nuance here. For your day-to-day guy that eats a variety of foods, PDCAAs works to make what are known as ready-use therapeutic foods. So foods that are looking to provide a complete source of nutrients, and foods that you can eat by themselves, and that's it. So it's for countries in need, or to certain like demographics that don't get access to food very often. But for you, for example, that you can like just go to the supermarket and buy a variety of foods, right? It doesn't make sense to use the PDCAAs because you eat a variety of food groups. For example, if you eat peanut butter, like a peanut butter sandwich, you're going to get like a complete amino acid profile. Now, the digestibility aspect of it that also gets talked about a lot. It is true that plant proteins have lower digestibility values, especially crude digestibility values, but there's like, let's just say, a little bit of noise in there because in actuality, the outcome data shows that plant proteins are just fine. And if you take a closer look at how the digestibility factors are calculated, you realize that they use crude matter. So like, for example, instead of cooked or boiled soybeans, they use raw soybeans, which have a lot of anti-nutrients, which they're called trypsin inhibitors or lectins as well. And that reduces the protein digestibility values, but it's not because once you cook it, the digestibility value stays the same, it actually increases. It's just that you use the raw matter, which doesn't make sense. So in actuality, plant protein sources are okay, they're just fine. And I don't care in admitting that I was wrong in the past. I was still like researching and I had the conception that higher PDCAs means better by default, and it isn't necessarily like that. So that's on that aspect. And then on the aspect of losing content, it actually is quite funny because there are a bunch of studies, and I actually talked to one of the researchers that are studying this very specific thing, the muscle protein synthesis response to eating different plant sources of protein. And what they consistently found is that at doses above 20 grams in young men, like 18 to 30 something, you really don't see a difference. They have the same muscle protein synthesis response. And if you're very afraid of like, oh, I don't get enough leucine per dose, you can just supplement with BCAAs. That's a good like use of BCAAs. You can enrich plant protein sources if you feel that they are not enough, or if you're like an older man, you know, in your 50s and above, because you're like you're not as sensitive at protein or at amino acids, more so. You're not as sensitive to get a response. Because of that, you can supplement with BCAAs, that specific protein. So you take your protein shake and you add some BCAAs, or you take protein shakes that have been enriched with BCAAs, or plant blends. Like, you have a lot of options. So plant proteins, at the end of the day, in the whole food, they're very bioavailable, more than you think. And the second thing is that you can always take a protein powder supplement. It's not that big of an issue. Also, fiber. And also, I forgot to mention, plant proteins also have been associated with lower risks of cardiovascular disease, probably because that by itself, like replacing animal protein with plant protein, reduces the amount of saturated fat and cholesterol you intake. That is probably the reason, but that's just my interpretation. But then, it also has fiber, which again reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease, promotes a healthy gut microbiome. It also improves, you know, like insulin markers, and at the same time, you know, promotes like gut motility. So you go to the bathroom more frequently, which it is also good as long as it's not like excessive, you know. You do have to watch out a little bit for the fiber content. Like, if you're eating a lot of grains, you might have issues with that, especially beans. But if you vary your protein sources or you eat like textured proteins, you're going to be just fine. So that's for the fiber. Then you have phenolic compounds, antioxidants, which again reduces your risk of CVD alongside promoting longevity as a whole. You have less oxidation, your body's less propense to oxidation processes because you have the antioxidants to prevent that. And also you have like, and also something I want to mention is that plant protein food sources are high in satiation per calorie. So I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I am involuntarily cutting because I'm not complaining, I'm just going with the flow. I'm eating until I'm like satisfied, and that's it. I'm not stuffing myself or force feeding, and that by itself is causing me to lose weight, to be in a calorie deficit because I'm fairly active. I also work out, and like the amount of calories you would need in that case are higher than normal, and because of that, eating that amount of plant foods is a hassle. So right now I would say I'm currently at like 16-17% body fat, but before I started I was like 18 to 20. So I believe that with plant diets, especially if you implement stuff like I do, like intermittent fasting. I have been doing intermittent fasting for years now. I think, yeah, almost 8 years, or 8 years basically. And if you implement those things, not only do you have like better health outcomes, you also become so satiated by the foods that eating, maintaining, like 13 to 15% body fat, at least for someone that has like a overweight track record, and have all those fat cells giving me hunger signals. Even though all of that, I think it's going to be easier for me to maintain 13 to 50% body fat on a plant-based diet compared to a more a diet that is higher in animal products, basically. Also because the plant proteins or like plant foods in general tend to be lower in fat. You also have less calorie concentration per meal. So, for example, if you eat a really fatty steak, you can get in a couple thousand calories, like let's just say 1,200 calories, fairly easy, compared to eating that same amount of protein, for example, with lentils. It's going to be quite a chore. So that's something you have to keep in mind. Now, reason number 3, and it's the last one, and it's the one that I would say it doesn't have the most leverage, but it's the one that basically started this whole thing because I wanted to get into that environment, and that is my job and my research. So on regards to my job, I basically work currently producing plant foods for a company, like the design and the analysis and so on, and for example, think of like the mock meats, the Impossible Burger, or Just Egg, or those kind of things. I work doing that, and you might say, well, that makes you biased. Quite the contrary. I actually started not liking them, but I eventually started, incorporating more of that mindset, and I said, hey, if I'm going, that was my chair, I swear to God. So basically I said, hey, if I'm going to be working on like this kind of thing, I think it works by basically surrounding yourself with that environment. So eating more plant-based is going to tell you which necessities do these people that eat more plant-based foods have. Also being able to, by identifying the necessities, realizing what products can be made, and that sends you on the right path to then develop those products. So for example, you might say, hey, there's nothing that like compares to eating like fajitas with like meat and onions and all that kind of stuff. I really like fajitas, sorry. So then you say, well, what can I do? I should make like a replacement for that. And then you research a little and you say, hey, seitan seems like a really good choice. And then you learn how to design like a seitan-based mock meat and so on. And you end up with a really good product. Same goes, for example, for stuff like the Just Egg, plant milks, dressings for like the salads or dips, or vegan cheeses, and so on and so forth. As a food scientist, at least you get to surround yourself with your target market, right? Your target niche, sort of. So that's the job aspect, and then on the research part, I have been currently researching like protein, like the muscle protein synthetic response of different proteins, to do a certain thing that I won't talk about a lot because I still haven't gotten those published yet. But I have been researching protein for a while, and I think that also sends you into the direction of eating more plant-based to see how it's like. Basically, I'm a person that when I have something in my mind, I have to know everything about it, or as much as I can. So by researching protein, I ended up being, attracted to plant-based style of eating. So that's all for the job and research part. And yeah, that's basically the whole video for today. Hope you guys enjoy. Leave me your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.